Hello, this is Tim Lowe with Planet Forward Coaching. A big thank you to 530 people that have subscribed to this channel, Planet Forward Coaching. If you haven't already, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. If you'll get a marketable skill, chase that skill with a solid work ethic, always go the extra mile, develop people and communication skills, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in this country. A good example of a gentleman who's doing that right now is my good friend, Duane Swartz, who just led an honor bus detail down to Washington, D.C. on this Memorial Day weekend, 2022. So, Duane, please tell us a little bit about it. I got some great questions for you.
Hey, I'm just glad to be with you, Tim, and have the opportunity to talk about the honor bus and how it evolved, and how it's touching the lives of our most deserving veterans.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, how many veterans went this year, Duane?
This past Saturday on the 28th of May, we had 96, I think, on the list. We had a couple of no-shows, but I had a couple of guys show up we didn't have applications for. So probably around 90 actually went.
Super. And it was on what, 3 buses? And then you had an escort of what, 97, I guess it was, motorcycles bringing you guys down there?
Yeah, like I said, the motorcycle escort, the riders just show up. I never know how many are going to be there. We could have a half a dozen, like we did on our very first trip 11 years ago on May 7th, 2011, all the way to 40, 50, 60. We had 80 some on a trip back in the spring of 2019. Right before all the COVID stuff shut us down for a couple of trips. So I think somebody counted 97 this past Saturday.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess, well, Dr. Sidle's always very involved with everything with the school. And I saw there a post from her husband, Scott, who's also a great guy, basically saying, I guess he was one of the guys that got to take his motorcycle down there as well as part of that group.
Yeah, I was surprised. I always invite Dr. Sidle and Dr. Payne to go along. And I knew it was a busy weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. People have lots of plans and everything. But I saw her in the cafeteria, and then I didn't realize till later on that she and her husband were actually riding in the motorcycle procession. It was his birthday, so
yeah, very cool. Well, heck of a birthday present, and
yeah,
obviously, a pretty good ride down there. I got to give Dr. Sidle a lot of kudos on that, because here it is. We're coming right up to graduation as well. So it's not like she doesn't have anything going on. That's for sure.
Yeah. Very involved.
So any particular stories of individuals? Give us the kind of a quick synopsis on how this got started, Duane.
Okay.
And any other stories that you may want to share with us as far as some of the wonderful people you're taking down there.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing got started in the spring of 2010. I used to take my sophomore U.S. history students down to Washington to visit Arlington National Cemetery, and then visit some of the monuments and memorials, in the couple of hours we had. And I always sit up close to the bus driver, and this was a red line bus. I had a bus full of, like I said, sophomores in 2010, and the bus driver kind of turns around. We were on Constitution Avenue in Washington, because I remember exactly where we were. And he says, "Hey, you might be interested in this." Okay. And he starts telling me about a trip he had driven a few weeks earlier for a school. Now, he couldn't quite remember the name of the school, but they drove World War II vets down to Washington to visit the World War II memorial. And it's like, okay, you got my interest. I am kind of interested in this. And he told me a little bit about it. And then he said, "Oh, I think it was Mechanicsburg Middle School." So I said, "Great. So now I have a school." So when I got back, the next day after that field trip, sent an email out to our staff at the high school saying, "Does anybody know anybody in the Mechanicsburg School District?" Well, before too long, one of my colleagues got back to me and said, "Yeah, I played baseball in college with a guy who works in the Mechanicsburg School District." Great. So I got that name. I emailed him saying, "Hey, do you know anything about this project?" So within a day or two, I had a name and contact information of Becky Lacey, who had started the honor bus program at Mechanicsburg Middle School to take World War II vets down to Washington. And they had done a couple of trips, and she invited me to a meeting. She said, "Oh, by the way, we're having a meeting next Monday." to plan their fall trip in 2010. I said, great. She invited me to attend it. I sat through the meeting. They had a committee, lots of adult volunteers. She said, what do you think? I said, hey, I love it. I want to do it. So she, sent me everything and anything she had on the project. Talked with some of my colleagues at Northeastern, saying, hey, I'd really like to do this, but we need to find a group of students, because I always knew, that it had to have student involvement.
Sure.
So between Kathy and myself, we came up with a list of 12 students, invited them to a meeting and said, hey, here's an idea. I can, from the pictures, I see what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, Duane,
Here's what I want to do.
Duane, would that be Kathy Bob? I want to say her last name.
Yeah, it was Morocco, Kathy Morocco.
Oh, Kathy Morocco. Okay.
Yeah, at the time, I think she was still under her maiden name. I think at the time was Kathy Lippert, and then she got married. Now Kathy Morocco.
I wasn't sure which Kathy we were talking about here.
Yeah, sorry. I all of a sudden thought about that, because we did have two Kathys in the department.
Right.
So anyway, she was on board with it. We got a couple of students and presented the idea to them, and I said, hey, here's what it is. I'd like to do it. We picked out a date. May 7th, 2011, we ended up taking our first trip. 56 World War II vets, 2 buses, almost 112 people. And kind of the rest is history. We did another trip with World War II vets. We did 2 trips specifically with Korean War vets in 2013. And then in 2014, expanded into, World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans. And, now we're just taking everybody and anybody who is, who has served, regardless of, duty station, era, whether they're stateside, they're in country, whether they're combat, whether they're, support services. We just want everybody to know that we appreciate their service, and they're not forgotten.
Sure. And obviously, you have to put together a great team to do this, besides the students and everything like that. And I know the veterans, they're not charged at all. I guess they get breakfast at the high school, if I'm not mistaken. They don't pay a cent. How do you guys, how have you worked the big fundraising for this?
Yeah, the financial part of it, I still remember when I had that first group, I looked at them and said, here's what we want to do, but we have no money.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do this for free, So again, I always thought that this was something that the VFWs, the Legions, the AMVETs, the auxiliaries, this is something they should be doing for their older members who can't drive, who can't get to DC. I mean, we're only 2 hours away from Washington, DC, and with all these monuments and memorials, dedicated to military service that, some can't get there to see. So, basically just, fundraising letters to, all the veterans organizations, and, they've been very supportive, and I appreciate their faith and confidence in me to be a good steward of the money they send me. So, the bus transportation, I got a good deal with Elite Coach, but, they're a business too, so.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and as far as some of the students, I saw some of the, if you had a few different students that have made several trips, I'd certainly like to, give a shout out to them, or some of the adults that have gone. I know Jody Ernst has been very actively involved.
Yeah, like I said, it certainly takes a village. I mean, somebody has to organize it, but it takes the, the students who help with all the setup work, the stuffing of envelopes and all that kind of stuff prior to the trip, the day before the trip, setting up, putting the cafeteria back in order after a trip, the adult volunteers, the adult guardians, as we call them, who walk alongside the veterans or push the wheelchairs, just, ensure safety and just keep an eye out for these guys throughout the day. I've had a lot of wonderful volunteers over the years. Some went on a few trips and have moved on. Some keep coming back, trip after trip, because, if I have people who know what to do, and, I have faith and trust in them, they know what to do, and I don't have to worry.
Sure. And some of those that have been, the frequent people, and we don't want to miss anybody, but as far as you can name some of them, Duane, that have made quite a few trips with you.
Oh my golly, if I start naming names, I'm going to miss people, because I always miss somebody. But yeah, you mentioned Jody. Oh golly, again, the Stacey and Randy have been on a number of trips. Amanda Sodal has become my right hand here at school, doing lots of the computer stuff for me. She's been on a number of trips. I don't know. Like I said, I'm afraid I'll miss somebody. I'm trying
That's
to do this
okay.
off the
That's
top of my
okay.
head.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So going forward, Duane, again, as we kind of start to wrap things up here a little bit, do you anticipate a fall trip this year as well?
Yeah, certainly. Like I said, I'm starting to look down the road towards retiring from the teaching profession.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, I definitely want to do a fall trip. And, having been shut down because of COVID for a few years, we lost the spring 2020 trip, the fall 2020 trip, the spring 2021 trip. We lost those. And when we finally got to do one last fall in November of 2021, I was really thinking, that was going to maybe be the last one, or maybe nothing until the fall of 2022. But there was such an air of excitement. I just felt that amongst the vets that, I guess, they too, having not been able to travel, even their lives outside of Honor Bus, didn't have much to do, and it's really is an experience. It's not just a bus trip. I was telling them on Saturday, because I always talk to them a little bit after we're done with our evening meal, and share with them a little bit of how I got into this. It came to me a couple years ago. This isn't just a bus trip. Everybody's been on a bus trip. You go to point A, you get on the bus, you go to point B, you get off the bus, you get back on the bus, they take you back to point A.
Mhm.
This is an experience, and it's one of the reasons why I just want just veterans.
Mhm.
Because when guys that have a shared camaraderie, they have that shared military experience. Even if it's different branches, they all have that basic training experience, that AIT experience. They can sit down across the table from one another, not knowing one another when they walked in the building. They're sharing some coffee and some breakfast, and after a while, it's like they've been buddies all their lives because they have that experience.
Mhm.
And to travel to Washington to see the World War II Memorial, or the Korean Memorial, or especially the Vietnam Memorial. It's very emotional for a lot of guys, and they all understand the emotion each feels.
Mhm.
So I do think it can be part of the healing process. And again, that's something that came to me a couple of years ago, that it's not just a bus trip. This for some, it could be part of the healing process, which some of our veterans still really need a great deal of healing. And if this can be one little part of it, then, we've done our job.
Sure, sure. No, very well put, Duane. And this has been fantastic. Let's say let me just kind of conclude this way. If there's some students that, listen to this and they'd like to, kind of become part of this going forward, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, I've always been kind of selective, because
Sure.
the coach bus holds 56 people. And, so I try to keep the group small, and I really do like to be able to choose my own students, ones that I've seen in class where I see their work ethic. I see how they are as students academically. I see how they are as persons.
Mhm.
So I kind of relied on my colleagues the last couple of years because of being, again, the shutdown and, cyber and all that. I haven't had a whole lot of students that, really, I wanted to invite. So I really went with some of my colleague recommendations, but that's usually what I do is, I just kind of, in my mind, I need a couple of students, who would I want to choose based upon what I've seen, academically and behaviorally and attitudinally.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Because I mean, like you said, it's supposed to be an experience. It's all about the veterans. So you really want to
Yeah.
have some kids in there that are students in there that can grasp the importance of the experience for these people that have given so much as far as
Yeah.
their lives are concerned. Totally agree.
Yeah. I've always kind of framed it, this honor bus thing is something bigger than ourselves,
Sure.
and doing something for somebody else in hopes that, again, this has become a passion for me.
Hmm.
And, it's just a thrill as a classroom teacher to be able to share something that I am passionate about with students in hopes that, they themselves will develop a passion for community service, for, helping and serving others, because that's what it's really about in life.
Yeah, well, and also it's very, very true that when you see a lot of these students outside of class or whatever, you're seeing, really what they're all about. It's a wonderful experience seeing these young people as they step up and everything. I couldn't agree with
Yeah.
you more.
Yeah, just some of the comments I've gotten over the years, where some of the students say, this is their most favorite high school memory, doing one of these trips or doing several trips.
Sure.
It's the stuff that they remember, and hopefully again, it develops into a passion, of theirs, whether it's something in the medical profession or just, anything within community service. Doesn't necessarily have to be serving veterans, but, certainly,
Sure.
serving everybody and anybody.
Absolutely. Well, Duane, this has been fantastic. I super appreciate it. Can you hang for a minute when we get finished
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I know a lot of people appreciate the honor bus, and it's become a very, very big deal as far as the Northeastern School District. So well done. And I know it means a lot to a lot of people.